Previously on Afro K Timeless Stories. Doyoon lowered the phone. His hand was not quite steady, and she had not known his hands could be unsteady. He looked at her across the room, across 11 years, across 3 words in a dead man's hand, and he said, very quietly, the thing that ended the night and opened the abyss. "He wants to meet you," Doyoon said. "He says if I do not bring you to him myself, by tomorrow night, he will send people who are not as gentle as the ones who came to your family's house. He knows what you are to me now. I made sure he knows, tonight, when I stood in front of that door." He paused, and the fear in his still face was the most frightening thing Amara had witnessed in the entire terrible evening. "I spent 11 years keeping you invisible," he said, "and I destroyed all of it in one night, because I could not stand in that room and let them think you were nothing. I made you visible. I made you matter. And in my world, Amara, the thing a man loves is not a person. It is the thing you use against him." She took the phone out of his hand. Han Doyoon did not let go of things. That was one of the first true things Amara had learned about him across this endless night, that his hands closed around what mattered and did not open again for anyone. And yet, when she reached up and closed her fingers over the phone he was holding to his ear, the phone with the voice of the man he answered to still speaking her name into it, he let her take it. He let her take it because he was so surprised that she would, and because some part of him, she would understand later, had been waiting 11 years for someone brave enough to take something out of his hands. She lifted it to her own ear. Her heart was going hard, but her hand was steady, and she had learned long ago that a steady hand is a kind of lie you can tell the world until it becomes true. On the other end of the line there was a silence, and then a breath, an old man's breath, patient and unhurried, and somehow worse than any shouting could have been. He had heard the phone change hands. He was waiting to see what she would do with it. "This is Amara Mensah," she said. The silence on the line changed. It became interested. "I know you have been speaking about me as if I were a thing to be delivered," she said. "A package, a debt, something to be brought to you by tomorrow night or taken by force. So I am calling to save you the trouble, and to save the men you would send, because I have seen tonight what happens to men who are sent for me, and I would not wish it on anyone." She looked at Doyoon as she spoke, at his still face gone rigid with a dread she did not yet fully understand. "I am not going to be delivered to you," she said. "I am going to come to you, on my own feet, of my own choosing. I will look you in the eye across whatever table you like, and we will settle whatever it is you think my father left unpaid. But understand me clearly, no one is bringing me. I am coming. There is a difference, and before this is over, you are going to understand exactly how large a difference it is." She did not know, as she said it, that she was echoing words Doyoon himself had spoken to her hours ago, in another lifetime, in her family's golden house. "You did not hire me. You called me. There is a difference." The same shape of defiance, handed down the line from a dead father to a dangerous man to a woman in a wine-red dress who had decided she was finished being carried anywhere she had not chosen to go. On the other end of the phone, the old man laughed. It was a soft, dry, genuinely delighted laugh, and it was the most frightening sound Amara had heard all night, because there was real warmth in it. "Baba Mensah's daughter," the old man said, and his voice was almost tender. "Yes, I hear him in you. He hoped you would have his spine, and you do. Come then, child, come on your own feet. I will have a place set for you." And he said her name once more, softly, the way you say the name of something you have wanted for a very long time and have finally been told you may have, and then the line went dead. Amara lowered the phone. She was pleased with herself. She had taken control of the one thing everyone had spent the night trying to control, herself, and she had refused to be a hostage, and she could see no way for a woman who walks in freely to be held over anyone's head. A thing given cannot be taken. She had solved it. She almost smiled. And then she saw Doyoon's face, and the smile died before it reached her mouth. Because Han Doyoon was looking at her the way a man looks at someone who has just done something brave and irreversible and terribly, terribly wrong. And when he spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "You should not have done that," he said. "You think you have taken away his weapon. You have handed him a better one. He does not honor courage, Amara. Men like you and me, we respect a thing freely given. He is not like us. He collects the things that are freely given, because they are the only things in this world he cannot simply take, and they are therefore the only things he truly wants. You did not refuse to be leverage. You just told the most dangerous man alive that you are the one prize in this city that cannot be seized by force." He turned toward the long window and the sleeping city, and his reflection in the black glass looked, for the first time all night, like a man who was afraid. "You made yourself precious to him," he said, "and now we have to go and stand in front of him, tomorrow, because you have promised him you will. And I do not know, for the first time in 11 years, I do not know how to keep you safe." They did not sleep. There is no sleeping before a morning like the one that was coming. And so they spent the dark hours in the cold, clean house preparing in the only ways that were left to them. Doyoon moved through his own home like a general, the night before a battle he was not sure he would win. Quiet conversations in doorways with men Amara never fully saw, phones passed hand to hand, a stillness settling over the house that was not peace but its opposite, the held breath before a blow. And Amara sat by the long window with her father's letter in her lap, the letter she had carried all night and never opened, her name on the front in his careful hand, and she could not bring herself to break the seal. Not yet. Some part of her knew, the way you know things in the deep places, that whatever her father had written was meant for a moment worse than this one, and that if she read it now, she would have nothing left to reach for when the ground gave way completely. She was right. She would need it, but not yet. Sojin found her there near dawn. The young man with the scanning eyes and the silver earrings stood in the doorway for a moment before he spoke, and there was something in his face she had not seen in him before, a kind of grief that had already made up its mind about something. He crossed the room and set a cup of tea beside her that she had not asked for and did not want, and drank anyway, because it was kind. And she was learning that kindness in this cold world was so rare it had to be honored wherever it appeared. "You should know something about him," Sojin said quietly. "About Doyoon. Before you walk into that room today, he has been getting ready to die for you since the phone rang last night. He has not said it. He will not say it. But I have been at his side for 9 years, and I know the shape of him when he has decided to trade himself for something. And he decided it the moment Chairman Ko said your name. So whatever happens in that room today, whatever he does, you have to understand that he walked in already having chosen to lose himself so that you could walk out." And Sojin looked at her with those careful eyes, and he said the thing that was his own small confession. "I have never once, in 9 years, wanted to stop him from a thing he decided. Until now. Because I do not think he is right this time. I think you are worth more to him alive beside him than he can imagine. And I think he cannot see it. And I am hoping, Amara Mensah, that you can make him see it. Because I cannot." It was the longest speech she would ever hear Sojin make. He never made another like it. But it told her what she needed to know walking into the morning, that the man she had reached for in the dark had already decided to sacrifice himself, and that stopping him would be the hardest thing she had ever done. They went to Chairman Ko in the full light of a cold, clear morning, which was itself a kind of cruelty, because terrible things are supposed to happen in the dark, and this one was going to happen in the sun. The place was not what Amara expected. She had imagined a fortress, a compound, something that announced its danger. Instead, Sojin drove them to a quiet house at the edge of the water, low and old and beautiful, with a garden that someone tended with great love, and an old man waiting on a wide veranda with a pot of tea and 2 extra cups already set out, as if for guests he was fond of. That was the first wrongness, and Amara felt it in her spine the way you feel cold water. The warmth of it, the care. Chairman Ko Sang-chul had set a place for her exactly as he had promised, and he rose when she came up the steps, an old man with silver hair swept back and deep, unreadable eyes, and a courtliness worn so smoothly over the top of something merciless that a stranger would have wept at the graciousness of him. He turned a single jade ring slowly on his finger as he looked at her, around and around, and she did not yet know to be afraid of that small motion, though she would learn. "Sit," he said warmly, "both of you. You have come a long way and a hard night, and there is tea, and we are all civilized people here." He poured for her himself, his old hands steady, and he pushed the cup toward her across the low table, and he looked at her with what seemed like genuine fondness. "You have your father's face," he said. "Not the features, the face underneath the features, the one that decides a thing and does not unfeel it. He had that. It made him magnificent, and it made him a great deal of trouble, and I have missed it, I find, more than I expected to. Do you know I have not spoken his name aloud in 11 years? And here you are, wearing his face, sitting on my veranda, drinking my tea. Life is very strange, child, very strange and very long." For a while then, it seemed almost gentle. That was the false floor, and it held for longer than Amara would have believed possible. And the terrible thing about it was how much she wanted to believe it. Chairman Ko talked. He talked about her father as a young man, and there was real affection in it, and real grief. And he told her a story about Baba Mensah outsmarting a room full of dangerous men with nothing but a ledger and a straight face. And Amara laughed before she could stop herself. Laughed at a story about her father she had never heard, from the mouth of the man who was supposed to be her enemy. And Ko smiled to see her laugh, and he said, "There, that is his laugh. He gave you his laugh." And for a moment the veranda was warm and the tea was good, and it truly seemed, that this was an old man laying down an old grudge, releasing them both into the morning, letting the dead rest and the living go. Doyoon did not touch his tea. Doyoon sat very still beside her and watched Chairman Ko turn the jade ring around and around on his finger, and did not for 1 second relax, and Amara felt his stillness beside her like a wall, and did not understand yet why he would not let himself hope. And then Chairman Ko set down his cup, and the warmth left his face the way the sun leaves a room when a door is closed, all at once and completely. And he said, "Now, let us talk about the debt." "There is no debt," Amara said. She had prepared this. "My father paid what he owed your world 11 years ago. He spent his last favor to save the life of a boy who is now sitting beside me. Whatever you think remains, it was settled long before I was born." Ko looked at her with something almost like pity. "Oh, child," he said softly, "you have been told a beautiful story, and it is even mostly true, and it has told you nothing at all about what actually happened. Your father did not save that boy." He turned his old, unreadable eyes to Doyoon. "He stole him. There is a difference, and it is the whole difference, and no one has ever explained it to you, so I will." He rose, and he walked to the edge of the veranda, and he looked out at the water, and he told them the thing that reframed the entire 11 years, the thing that was the real shape underneath the story Amara had been given. "The boy was mine," Ko said. 11 years ago, that boy at the bottom of my world was mine to destroy, and I had every right, and every man who served me was watching to see me do it, because that is how a man like me holds a world together, by making sure that the price of a mistake is always, always paid. And your father, who I loved, who was closer to me than my own blood for many years, your father came to me and asked me to spare the boy, and I said no." He turned back to face them, and the courtly warmth was entirely gone now, and what was underneath it was old and cold and patient beyond anything Amara had ever imagined. "I said no," Ko said, "and your father defied me. He went around me. He spent power I did not know he still had, called in old debts from men above even me, and he took the boy out of my hands, publicly, in front of everyone. And he made me, Ko Sang-chul, look like a man whose word could be bought and gotten around. He humiliated me to save a stranger. And then he walked away into his clean life with his books and his little girl, and he left me to hold together a world that had watched me be defied and survive it, which a man in my position does not survive. Not really. Not ever. No matter how long he goes on breathing." Ko sat back down. He picked up his tea. His hands were perfectly steady. "I have waited 11 years, he said, "not for money, not for a boy, not for a debt. I have waited 11 years to balance the humiliation. Your father took something from me in front of the whole world. I intend to take something back in front of the whole world. And it took me until last night to understand what that something is." He looked at Doyoon, and then at Amara, and then, slowly, at the small space between them where their shoulders nearly touched. "It is you," he said. "Not to harm. That is crude, and I am not a crude man. No. Here is my price, and it is generous, and I want you to understand how generous, because I am a fair man, and I want the daughter of my old friend to know I gave her a choice." He turned the jade ring around once. "I will let this woman go," Ko said to Doyoon, "unharmed, untouched, forever. She may walk off this veranda and live a long life and never see me or mine again, and I will give my word on it, and my word, whatever else is true of me, has never once been broken. That is what I offer. And here is what I ask in return. You will come back to me, fully, as you were before this woman made you soft. You will pick up the work you laid down. And tonight, to prove that the boy Amara Mensah stole was always going to become mine in the end, that his precious mercy was wasted, that a thing spared becomes a monster anyway, you will do a piece of that work in front of her. There is a man I need dealt with. You will deal with him, here, tonight, while she watches, so that she sees exactly what she has been loving, so that she carries the truth of you out into her long, free life. That is the balance. Her freedom for your soul. Her life for the proof that your father's great sacrifice made a monster after all." The morning was very quiet. The water moved against the shore, and Amara understood, at last and completely, the trap that had been built around her since before she was born. There was no escape that did not cost everything. If Doyoon refused, Ko would take her, and no gambit of freely given courage would save her, because Ko collected exactly the things that were freely given. If Doyoon agreed, he would live and she would live, and the life her father bought with the most extravagant love a man could commit would be revealed as a waste, and the man she had reached for in the dark would become, in front of her eyes, the monster he had spent 11 years believing he was. Every path forward was loss. This was the crucible, and there was no clean way out of it, and both of them knew it. And Doyoon, beside her, drew a slow breath, and she felt him make his decision, felt him choose the things Sojin had warned her he would choose, felt him gather himself to say yes, to trade his soul for her life, to become the monster so that she could walk free believing the worst of him and live. "No," Amara said. She said it before he could speak. She said it the way she had said it to her aunt in the study a lifetime ago, the small, hard word that had defined the whole night. And she reached into her bag, and she took out her father's letter, the letter she had carried all night and never opened. And she understood now what the deep places in her had known all along, that it had been meant for exactly this moment, the worst one, the one where the ground gave way completely. She broke the seal, and she read her father's last words to her, aloud, on the veranda, in the cold, clear morning light. If you are reading this, my Amara, then the thing I always feared has found you, and I am not there to stand between you and it, and I am sorry. I am sorry for all the ways I kept you in the dark to keep you safe, because I see now that the dark is its own danger. So let me give you the light. There is a man named Ko Sang-chul, and if he has come for you, he will tell you a story about how I humiliated him, how I defied him, how I made him small in front of his world, and he will make it sound like the reason for everything. It is not the reason. Here is the reason, Amara, and it is the one thing he has never been able to bear anyone knowing. I did not defy Ko Sang-chul to save that boy. Ko Sang-chul asked me to save that boy, in secret, because the boy was his son. The veranda went utterly silent. Amara looked up from the letter. Chairman Ko had gone very still, and the color had drained from his old face, and the jade ring had stopped turning, and Amara understood that she was holding, in her father's handwriting, the one secret in the world that Ko Sang-chul had killed to keep buried. He could not save the boy himself, Amara read on, her voice shaking now but not stopping, because a man in his position cannot be seen to spare his own blood. It is the one weakness his world would never forgive. It would be the end of him. So he came to me, his oldest friend, and he asked me to defy him. He asked me to make it look like theft, like humiliation, so that no one would ever guess the truth, so that he could keep his son alive and keep his throne both, and let the world believe he had been beaten rather than let the world know he had been merciful. I spent my last favor to save that boy, yes, but I spent it for Ko, as a gift to my friend, to carry a shame that was his so that his son could live. The boy does not know. Ko can never let him know. And that, my daughter, is the blade you hold if you ever need it. Because a man who has waited 11 years to punish the world for his own secret mercy is a man who cannot survive the mercy being spoken aloud. Amara lowered the letter. And Han Doyoon, sitting beside her, turned very slowly to look at the old man across the table. The old man who had ordered his death 11 years ago. The old man he had feared and served and answered to for a decade. And he said, in a voice with no bottom to it at all, "You are my father." Chairman Ko did not answer. He did not need to. His silence was the loudest thing on that veranda, and it was a confession. And every man standing at the edges of the garden, every soldier who served Ko Sang-chul, had just heard the one thing that could not be unheard. If you have ever watched a secret come out that changes everyone in the room at once, then you know the terrible stillness on that veranda right now. Welcome back to Afro K Timeless Stories. If your heart is pounding, if you did not see that coming, do this storyteller a kindness and type "I am enjoying it" in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to believe that the truth, spoken out loud at the right moment, can break any chain. Subscribe so the final part reaches you the instant it lands. Thank you for staying with me. Now let me show you what a dangerous man does when he learns the man who marked him for death was his own father. And the thing that happened at the very moment they finally had won. What Doyoon did next, he did with the restraint that had chilled Amara all night, and it was the most frightening and the most necessary thing she had ever seen. He did not shout at his father. He did not weep. He rose from the low table, slow and unhurried, and he looked at Ko Sang-chul with 11 years of a marked man's fear turning in real time into something the old man had never once seen in his son's eyes, and that something was freedom. Because a son who fears his father can be controlled. A son who has just learned his father is his father, and that everything, the death sentence, the 11 years, the summons, all of it was one old man's monstrous inability to be known as merciful. That son is not afraid anymore. He is only cold. You built a world, Doyoon said quietly, to punish everyone else for the one soft thing you ever did. You marked me for death to hide that you loved me. You have waited 11 years to prove that mercy makes monsters, and the only monster your mercy ever made is you. He turned to Sojin, who stood at the edge of the veranda with his scanning eyes wide, and he said 3 words, calm and even and final, the way he had ended men all night. Take it apart. And in one cold, controlled sweep that Amara would never fully be able to describe afterward, Han Doyoon dismantled Ko Sang-chul's world in a single morning. Not with gunfire, not with blood on the veranda, nothing so crude. With the truth. Sojin moved, and phones lit up across the city, and the words, "A father is a father," spread through a world built entirely on the belief that Ko Sang-chul had been beaten, not merciful, and a throne that had survived 11 years on a lie could not survive one morning of the truth. Men who had served Ko out of fear stopped serving him the moment they understood the fear had been built on a secret weakness. The empire came apart the way empires built on lies always come apart, all at once and quietly, and from the inside. Doyoon did not raise his voice once. He simply spoke the truth into the one place it could never be survived, and the operation, the power, the throne, all of it, was gone by the time the tea went cold. One old man left on a veranda by the water, stripped of everything, alive, deliberately, so that he would have to live inside the ruin of it. The mercy that isn't. Spared in the way that is worse than death. And then it was over. It was actually over. Amara could hardly believe it. The trap that had been built around her since before she was born had sprung and closed on empty air, and Ko Sang-chul sat alone and ruined at his beautiful table. And Doyoon turned from his broken father to the woman who had broken the trap with 3 sentences in a dead man's hand, and he looked at her. And for the first time in the entire endless night and morning, the last of the cold went out of his eyes completely. He crossed to her. He took her face in both his hands, the hands that had just unmade an empire, and he held her the way you hold the one thing you were never supposed to be allowed to keep. "You keep me," he said, his voice breaking on it. The 3 words from the back of the photograph. Your father knew. He always knew. It was never me protecting you. It was you saving me. It has been you saving me since before I ever knew your name. And Amara, with tears running freely down her face and her father's letter still warm in her hand, and 11 years and 3 years and one endless night all resolving at once into a single unbearable brightness, rose up and kissed him. Finally, fully, the swoon of the whole serial arriving in one breath on a veranda by the water in the cold, clear morning light. 2 people who had chosen each other against every reason and survived it. It was the highest moment of the whole story. Which is exactly why the world chose it to end, because Amara felt it before she understood it. Felt Auntie Ajwa's voice, her aunt, here, alive, come at the last through the garden crying out her name in warning. Felt herself shoved hard sideways by ringed hands she knew, and the crack of the sound came a half-second after the light of the morning, and Amara hit the wooden boards of the veranda and rolled, and came up and turned and saw. She saw Ko Sang-chul on his feet, an old man with nothing left to lose and a small, ugly gun in his shaking hand. The last cruelty of a man who could not bear to be the only one who lost everything. And she saw that the shot he had fired at her, at Amara, at the daughter of the friend who had shamed himself out of love, had not reached her, because Auntie Ajwa was standing between them. Auntie Ajwa, who had been cruel for 30 years to keep Amara far from this exact veranda. Auntie Ajwa, who had vanished into the night and found her way here through means Amara would never learn, to stand in a garden and wait for the one moment her niece would need a body between her and the dark. Auntie Ajwa, in her gold and amber head wrap, with her hand pressed now to her side and a red bloom spreading beneath it, looking at Amara with an expression that was not fear and not pain, but something that looked, impossibly, like relief. Like a woman who had finally, after 30 years, gotten to protect the child she loved out loud, with her whole body, where everyone could see it. And her knees began to give way, and Amara screamed and lunged to catch her, and the highest moment of the whole story shattered into the very worst one. At the exact instant of maximum joy, the way the world always chooses the moment you have finally won to take back everything it can. Auntie Ajwa, shot, falling, in Amara's arms on a cold, bright veranda by the water. And 30 years of misunderstood love with only seconds left to be understood. Will Auntie Ajwa live long enough for Amara to finally know her? To say the thing that 30 years of cruelty hid? What becomes of Ko Sang-chul, ruined and alive and holding a spent gun on the wreckage of his life? And after everything, after the truth and the empire and the blood on the boards, can two people who have finally chosen each other build a life out of so much loss? Or has winning cost them the very thing they won it for? Tell me in the comments. Tell me you did not see her coming. Tell me who you are holding a little tighter tonight. Subscribe so the final part reaches you the moment it lands, because part 5 is where every loop closes, every tear is answered, and the woman who was called nothing is loved out loud in a way you will feel with your hand over your mouth. Stay with me. We are almost home.